Okay, so we're good to start. Hi, everyone. I just want to know what the audience is here. So raise your hands if you come from, there'll be two options, software developer background or security background. You can raise your hand twice. Software developer background, security background. Okay, great. There may be some terms that I'll say that will not be familiar for you. We have enough time for you to raise your hands every time that you hear a term that you're not familiar with, and I'll do my best to explain as long as I know what it means. So we will start with the first fun part, that is a quiz. So we looked for a couple of different breaches that were reported in the wild lately, and I would like you, there'll be 4 options, to tell which of these options you think is the method that was most used among the largest part of these breaches. So the first one is pivoting from the cloud network to internal network. The second is PSExec by sysinternals. PSExec is an administration tool that is more than 20 years old and is used for running commands on remote computers in a network. Microsoft Exchange zero-day vulnerability, or Mimikatz, that's a hacking tool that is used for dumping credentials. I tend to take pictures of the audience as they vote so that they can't deny they picked the wrong one. So I'll do it. First option. Second one. Okay. Third? Fourth? Okay. So you happen to be correct, at least most of you. It's indeed PSExec by sysinternals. Very well done for those who raised their hands. But for those who didn't, I can understand. Because I think that we are very often biased towards what's more maybe flashy or novel than what's more broadly used. And this information was taken based on around 19 reports of CISA. This is a security organization. And they have a Stop Ransomware project where they analyze different APTs, advanced persistent threats. This means like large-scale breaches. And Mimikatz, that is the mistake that normally when the audience is more of a security audience, they think it's Mimikatz, actually. It was used among 5 of them, whereas PSExec was used among 7 of them. And you may ask yourselves, how come a 20-year-old tool be still so popular in breaches? And yeah, it's because we're biased towards novelty rather than actual risk relevance. And it's common that we see on the security media outlets that they are incentivized towards posting things that were never seen before. 0 days, you know, there's that people working on media that need to make flashy headlines, and this is how they end up showing things. And then, for me, I haven't introduced myself yet, but I will. I see this, and then I get customers start asking or being stressed about all these new CVEs coming out. CVEs stands for Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. These are vulnerabilities that are let's say, acknowledged by a certain organization, and then they get an ID for them as they become public. So this is a misconception that I want to break today, and I will do it by a demo and an example for a more common attack to see how it's carried out. So this is going to be a full demonstration of an attack end to end. We are focusing here more on network and less on secure software development, so that this is your time if you want to leave quietly. No, but just kidding, it will be fun. A little bit about me. I've been in offensive and defensive security for the past probably more than 10 years. And I joined Cato Networks 4 years ago. This is a company that does networking and security. And back then, I just established then it was the security content team. Now it's the security content group, which is under the research organization. And my boss told me, hi, these people over there are your 2 employees. And now your goal is to make Cato's security the best possible. Okay. I knew that by saying the best possible, he means make us better than the competitors, so I just looked up at what competitors have to offer in terms of security. They had IPS products. IPS is intrusion prevention systems. These are products that sit on the network and detect and prevent attacks from being carried out. And everything, like back then, I think that it shifted a bit since then. Since 4 years ago, but back then, when I looked up at what they have to offer, it was, hi, we're covering this number of CVEs or a larger number of CVEs, and the more CVEs, the better. But something felt a bit weird to me about just protecting against more and more CVEs, because I thought to myself how an attack starts. Where would the next attack begin to happen? And I said, well, it's probably someone who clicks the wrong link or opens the wrong email, phishing email. So what's the point of chasing after CVs? It's not that they have to be completely neglected, but still we had the sense in our team that there has to be some kind of a different approach to when you're trying to make the best security possible, as my boss asked me. So we tried to come up with what would be the most common exploit, or where would it start? And we know that risk is security times relevance. You don't see novelty in this equation, and you don't see technical complexity or sophistication in this equation. So, and having 2 people in our team was a good representation for how the cybersecurity field in general is, right? Yeah, like I believe that those of you who are not, and also those who are working as a cybersecurity as opposed to software development, like normally the resources that we have are very low, and we need to understand how we focus and how we prioritize our efforts on protecting networks. So we came up with an archetype for the most common attack, the run-of-the-mill, the average Joe of all attacks. And to get there and to understand what is that most common attack, we looked at different resources. One of them is MITRE. MITRE have different projects. MITRE is well-known, maybe the most well-known security nonprofit organization. One of them is the attack metrics. We will see an example for it later, but the attack metrics is some sort of a taxonomy that MITRE came up with that shows step-by-step or tries to generalize and to give names for the techniques that are used in a breach, starting from the initial access and going on and on until there's some impact on the network. There is also the MITRE Ingenuity. This is another project by MITRE where they provide ways to assess the security of networks so that they have some examples for APTs, for advanced persistent threats, step by step, so they kind of simulate other breaches that were seen in the wild, and this is also very useful. And another thing is attack flows. This is sort of a schematic way that they provide for writing the flow of an attack. There's also Atomic Red Team. This is a GitHub project. You can look it up. It's really nice. And while the MITRE terminology is a bit more conceptual about techniques, Atomic Red Team managed to have really like lines of code or bash lines that simulate all the techniques and how they are carried out, so that it was easier for us to get the attack examples to a more tangible form. And there was some threat intelligence reports, also highly recommended. The DFIR report that shows different network breaches, analyzes them into really how they were, what techniques were used along it, and CISA's stop ransomware that was discussed. And also, being a cloud security provider, we have our own data, and we can look at attack attempts that our customers witnessed, and this is also a very useful source. So we took all these sources and tried to compile them into something that we can score in a more linear fashion, and ended up with this skeleton for what a network attack in real life is. There's initial access. In our case, like as I said, phishing may be the most common one. Then there's ingress tool transfer. This is when the attacker starts downloading tools onto their patient zero on the network so that they can use it for their further activities. Discovery, the attacker starts looking around for points of interest in the network. Then there's some phase of credential dumping and privilege escalation. This is when the attacker tries to get a better foothold on the network. Then moving between different machines. This is what we call lateral movement, so that if it's malware, it spreads across the machines. And eventually there's some sort of impact. In this case, the example is for exfiltration of data outside of the network, but it can also be encryption of data, for example, for extortion. So this is how it works, and very quickly we got to the demo time. I have a bunch of disclaimers before the demo starts. There will be quite a lot of text on the screen sometimes for the commands that the attacker executes here. You don't have to read it all or try to understand what each and every flag means, but rather stick to my explanations and you will do fine, I promise. If you want the presentation later, I can share it with you. Another thing is that a technique that is going to be used here is outputting the commands that were made by the attacker into a text file and then printing them out. This was just for convenience because it's sometimes, in some scenarios, it's not that easy to get the outputs of interactive commands. So this is why this technique is used. So again, you will see it here. I want you not to be intimidated by it. And for the sake of simplicity, I switched off every protection mechanism that exists that may exist sometimes by default on the network, just to prove the point of how attacks are carried out end to end again. But I would be happy if, as we go, you think about ways where this attack could have been stopped. So what are, let's say, maybe the network or the endpoint indicators that are strong enough to create protection. And I think this is a good exercise for all of us, and I'll get back to you about it when we end the presentation to see who paid the most attention. Also, some parts here are skipped a little bit. There'll be some hand waving. I'll sometimes tell you about it, and I'll sometimes hope that you don't notice. This is just so we can focus on the main interesting parts of this attack. So I think we can start. We have a couple of characters in this demonstration. The first one is Johnny. No H, single N. He is a frustrated employee who works for a certain organization, and he is silently looking for job opportunities outside of the organization. There's his colleague, Danny, and we have the hacker, Ingrid. She's a Norwegian. She was born and raised in Oslo, and I always like to name the attackers after receptionists in hotels. So this is her. Now, Ingrid has heard that, or has got to be informed that Johnny is looking for a job opportunity, so she thinks it would be great to take advantage of this human vulnerability, is something that she can socially exploit. So this is what she does, and she's also a hacker, not only a social hacker. She looks up Google for reverse shells. I will soon explain what reverse shells are for those of you who don't know, but very easily she gets to this GitHub project called Hoax Shell. It's available, like everyone can get there and download a Python-based reverse shell. Very easy to operate, and it is based on PowerShell. So that's great. Let's see how it works for her. So this is Hoax Shell. She just cloned the project and ran it. It's like Python Hoax Shell, not a lot more complicated than this. And the state where she is in now, and now I will explain what reverse shell is that she is waiting for a victim on the client side. This is her Kali Linux server. She waits for a victim to run the client side of this shell. Once they do, she is able to run shell commands on their computer, okay? And maybe she has tried to do it on different clients, but now she's in an idle mode until Johnny gets to run the client side of the shell. But how would it happen? Well, I was throwing hints for this. This is Johnny's computer, and he gets a phishing email that was made by Ingrid. And in this email, there's a job offer. That's very nice. She knew the soft spots of Johnny, and she even spelled his name like he does, single N, no H, so that it's probably legitimate. This is what Johnny thinks, and he even enables the macros because he is not concerned about security, as you probably are, and this is a bad mistake. Because once he enables macros, a VB script runs on his computer. This VB script runs PowerShell, which runs the client side of that reverse shell. So lucky Ingrid, she has a victim now. And this is how it looks like back from Ingrid's side. She gets a PowerShell on his computer. Just to know which victim it is, she runs who am I and sees that the username is Johnny, and then she looks at the hostname and sees that it's Johnny again. Great. So she has shell on Johnny's computer, at least for now. Let's see where she takes it from here. But first, since Ingrid is very well organized, she has a checklist for the goals that she wants to reach in her attack. And the first achievement that she got is the initial access. Now, not only is she well organized, but she's also very well educated, and you can tell that she uses the tactic terminology that is used by MITRE. So the first one was ingress, initial access, and now she's in the ingress tool transfer phase. And this is when she will try to download tools onto Johnny's computer. And she does that by, again, a PowerShell line that is invoke web request. This is similar to, maybe you're familiar, if you're not familiar with PowerShell and you are familiar with Linux, this would be curl or wget, just fetching information from the internet. So she points Johnny to a specific PowerShell script that she's written and is hosted on her GitHub page. And then she runs it, and this PowerShell script downloads a bunch of tools from different places. Some of them are her own servers, and some are just popular tools that are available on the internet, so that she just sends him by the script to download it straight from the original website. Okay, so let's zoom into them and see what she has there for him. Okay, so we have here ADFind. ADFind is AD for Active Directory. This is an Active Directory querying tool, and it will be useful for her for discovery. It queries the LDAP service. Then there's Mimikatz. Again, this is a credential dumping tool. We'll see it in action later. There's PS Tools. This is a suite of tools that's, again, 20 years old. It includes PS exec that is used for running commands from one computer to another. Evil.exe, she feels comfortable about having indicative names on files because she knew about this presentation, and she knew that I'm going to switch off all security mechanisms, and also it's easier from an educational point of view. Evil.exe is a piece of malware that she's crafted herself. And let's jump to the last one, rclone. rclone is a client that is used for interacting with cloud services, and specifically with cloud storage services, so that if you want to upload a certain file to, say, your Dropbox account, you can do it in command line using rclone. Great. And these are maybe some kind of spoilers for what she's going to do next, or cliffhangers. You can see here that there's a lot of lolbeans. Lolbeans stands for living off the land binaries, and this is a term that's used for all these tools and applications that already exist on the operating system, and attackers really like using it. Here I stretched the definition a little bit because they are not off the land, because she's downloaded them. But still, I am, in the broad sense, I'm referring to all those tools that are popular, that are not malware per se, and there's no reason for administrators to block them, and sometimes there's no reason for endpoint protection tools such as anti-malware to block them. So that there's two benefits that attackers get from these, the usage of lolbeans. One of them is that, as I said, it's stealthier. And the other is that they don't have to develop it themselves, and attackers are lazy, or maybe we should say efficient, so they don't have to develop the functionality of uploading files to cloud services themselves, because someone has already developed rclone. So it's good for them, but it's also a double-edged sword from the attacker's perspective, and we are going to see it. Back to the checklist. Ingrid happily checks the second part. she has downloaded the tools onto Johnny's computer. The next thing she does is discovery. I am a tourist here in Oslo. I just landed yesterday, and when I landed, I had to orient myself and find how the transportation works, where the hotel is, where I get to taste brown cheese, and of course, what's the name of the receptionist, so I can name the hacker after her. So Ingrid does the same. She also just landed on Johnny's network, and she has to orient herself so that she looks up at what the environment, the network environment is like. And for this, she runs adefine that she's just downloaded. Okay, so this is adefine, and this is a command that looks for other computers on the network. And she, again, she uses the same outputting to a txt file that I told you about. And she finds that there's a couple of interesting computers. There's a DC, which means that this is an administered network. That's good. There's Johnny's computer and Danny's computer, as well as some other computers that may be around. Okay, that's good for her. She writes it down, and she knows that these may be some popular, like not popular, but some points of interest that she would be happy to examine later. The next thing she does is to look for privileged groups or domain groups now that she knows that the network is administered. So she looks at, this is a net group, which is a pure lolbin. Net group is a command that's available on Windows. And when she does that, she finds that there's a group of domain admins. And this is a very nice target, because if she gets to have the username and password of a domain admin, it means that she can navigate freely between the machines on the network. So that's very beneficial for the attacker. So she's back on her list and checking her achievement, that is finding Danny's PC and finding that this is an administered network, and hopefully she'll get to domain admin access. The next thing is credential dumping and privilege escalations. Now she is going to see if she can collect passwords on the network where she's on. So she, but first, what's the purpose of credential dumping is to expand the attacker's foothold, right? Because if she has more credentials, she can maybe have be able to move more between different parts of the network, and also for treasure hunting. So if she gets to see other computers, I believe that Johnny's computer, I don't believe I made the presentation. Oh, I know that Johnny's computer is not that interesting for Ingrid because he is frustrated and he doesn't really work that much. But there may be other places where sensitive data may be stored. So she wants to move, to spread from Johnny's computer. So here she's using Mimikatz. Mimikatz, at least in this mode, it's an attacking tool. It's also quite old. And it queries the SAM cache. This is the security access management cache on the local machine. And then she can get the NTLM hashed passwords of users that were recently logged into Johnny's computer. Now see what she's found. Danny was recently logged to Johnny's computer. So she gets the hash of Danny's password, and by getting the hash of Danny's password, she can get his password, right? Yeah, I like that you, this is exactly the reaction that I was expecting. It's not that right, but it does mean that she can enumerate on different passwords, or maybe use some dictionaries, or look at the dark web for dictionaries, or do some sorts of brute forcing that would maybe help her get the password. And actually, it's not something that Ingrid has to do manually, but there are tools for it. And this is where I'm waving hands a little bit and skipping the brute force or dictionary collection part, and going straight to Ingrid, taking this hashed password and using a tool called John the Ripper. That's, if I remember correctly, it's even served by default on Kali Linux. And by using this, she can find, or let's say break the hash. It's not really breaking, but it's enumerating until she finds what the password is. And the password is, funny, Cato 2023. This is Danny's password. And now that she knows the username and the password of Danny, and she knows what is his machine, because it was called PC Danny, she can laterally move onto Danny's machine. Very good, Ingrid. Time to check that box. Okay, next thing she's doing is lateral movement. Well, the state where Ingrid was up until now is quite fragile, because if Johnny shuts down his computer or restarts it, she no longer has access. She needs him to open the phishing link again, which is quite unlikely. So that she wants to get a better foothold or more points of access to the network. And this is what we're going to see her doing now. So she's going to use now PSExec. Finally, we talked about it a lot, to spread from Johnny's computer to Danny's computer, now that she knows his credentials. So she saves all these credentials onto variables in the shell. That's just for convenience, not to have her lines of one-liners too long. And then she is going to use it for running commands on Danny's computer. Okay, so once she did this, this is PSExec that we see here. And by using this PSExec, she creates a new folder called C/exploit on Danny's computer. Okay, the next thing, did the video run? Okay, the next thing is, sorry, let's take it again, or try. Okay, so she's created that C/exploit on Danny's computer. Then she creates a drive called Z on Johnny's computer that is mapped to Danny's C/exploit, because she's also opened Danny's C/exploit for sharing to everyone. And then she uses xcopy, again, a lolbin, a binary that's already built into Windows, to copy evil.exe from Johnny's computer to Johnny's Z drive that is mapped to C/exploit on Danny's computer. So by this time, she has evil.exe on Danny's computer. And this, as I said, is a piece of malware. Obviously, it doesn't really have to be an executable. There's other ways to execute code, DLL injection, and other things that you can look up on the internet and find easily. But this is just one example. Now, the next thing is creating a scheduled task on Danny's computer. This is a scheduled task. It runs every 30 minutes over and over again on Danny's computer, and it runs that evil.exe file. This means that now she has much more persistence on the network, because she has 2 machines, and on the second machine, that's Danny's machine, she's learned from her previous fragility, and now even if Danny shuts down his computer, when he turns it back on after 30 minutes, or depending what's the scheduled task cadence, the malware will start again, and then she'll be able to communicate with it again. Okay, so that's a very good step for Ingrid. The next thing is getting to run Mimikatz on Danny's computer to see, and I will not repeat the explanations again. She does it in the same way. So she copies the Mimikatz executables onto the shared folder that she has between Johnny and Danny. Now she has it on Danny, and then using psexec, she will run it on Danny's computer, output the file to the same shared folder, and then from Johnny's computer, she will execute it so that she can see the hashed passwords of everyone that was logged onto Danny's computer. Okay, and now look what she's found. Amazing. I can't believe it. She has, there was a domain admin that was logged onto Danny's computer. This is something that's quite popular. Like it makes sense that there's a domain admin logged onto users in an organization. I don't know why Johnny didn't have it, but now she can take this administrator username, take the hash, go again to John the Reaper, try some dictionaries, and then find out what the domain admin password is. And this is where I'm going to skip this because you've already got the gist of things. But she is now good to check this part on her list. So she's achieved domain admin password. From this moment on, she can use the same techniques that you've seen here to navigate between computers and find interesting things and maybe some interesting files to exfiltrate. And then she finds a file that's called sensitivedata.txt that resides on one of the servers on that network. And the next thing she wants to do is to exfiltrate it. Now, when attackers want to exfiltrate, they have a couple of ways to do it, because eventually she sees that the file is there, but she wants she wants to view it or get it. One way to do it is just to print it onto the shell, but maybe it's too big. I don't think it would be a very good idea. Another way is by transferring it over SSH to a server that she owns. But if she does that, and now I'm going to bring the security mechanisms back, there may be some firewall rules that are blocking outbound access of SSH to unknown servers. It does make sense to have such a rule in a network that has some basic security. Or via FTP, she could do it, but again, there's firewall rules can block it easily, so that she will exfiltrate by using, this is a technique that we do see often, and is uploading to a cloud service. In this case, like uploading the file to her own, let's say, Dropbox account, or in this case, I used mega.io. Raise your hands if you're familiar with mega.io. Cool, okay, for those of you who didn't. This is some sort of a WeTransfer, but I don't know why it's so sketchy. Like based on my experience of reading reports and looking at data from the wild, I haven't found a single usage of upload to mega.io that is not used by attackers, but still this is apparently a legitimate web application. So I'm going to use it just for fun, but she could have done it with Dropbox or any other sort of cloud service. And the reason that it's good, unlike the other options that I suggested that can be filtered by firewall rules, in this case, like why would anyone block access to Dropbox, to Google Drive, maybe to mega.io, it's a legitimate service. So we will see it. We will see Ingrid doing it by using rclone. So I'm skipping the part where she's mapped the drive on the destination server where the sensitive data is to W on Johnny's computer. Then she copies it from Johnny. OK. So this is a W, and there's secret data.txt that she is copying from the destination from the server where it resides to Johnny's C/exploit. Here's a dir listing, and you can see that it was copied successfully. And the next thing is to upload it to her Mega account by using rclone on Johnny's machine. OK. So now the file is being uploaded to mega.io, and then she can open it from wherever she wants, from her Kali Linux server, her own machine, her cell phone, everywhere. So let's see her collecting the file by just browsing to Mega. This is how it looks. There it is, secret data.txt. She opens it, and she reveals all the secrets of Johnny and Danny's company. A lot of sensitive data out there. So now she's finished her job. Big round of applause for Ingrid for completing her her attack. OK. Time to look back at what we had here. But before we do, does anyone of you have any questions about how the attack was carried out or any? Yeah.
Yes, I was just wondering if you could quickly explain again why Danny's password was logged on Johnny's computer.
Yeah, so this can happen. Maybe just Danny wanted to run something on Johnny's computer. He went physically, he logged in as Danny, and that's it. It's stored on the SAM cache. OK, this is one example. OK. I was just trying to maybe postpone the quick access to an administration password to prove the point of lateral movement first. So this is why I had Danny's computer actually, Danny's user logged on to Johnny's and not directly go to the administrator. OK? Yeah.
So when Ingrid got access to Danny's computer, why was it needed to create a shared partition between the two computers? Why not just exfiltrate the file out of Danny's computer?
Yeah, that's a good point. She wanted to move. Wait, the file is on a third server, not on Danny's. I was making it quickly, so you meant this part. She could do it. It would be possible, but I think that maybe it is sometimes a good practice to have only like one, let's say, pivoting place where you want to have all your bad activities there. Because, for example, it may be sometimes suspicious to see a server that communicates to mega.io. Maybe there is some firewall rule that blocks this, whereas simple users or clients are more expected to communicate with different web applications. Make sense?
Yeah. And follow-up question, you said that he established a scheduled job on Danny's computer that runs every half an hour. That just every half an hour reestablishes the reverse shell?
Yeah. I waved hands on that part. Like I didn't explain really what that exe does, but it may be just running a reverse shell or anything else that reestablishes a way for Ingrid to communicate back with the network. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll move to a couple of takeaways from this demo. First, this is the MITRE attack metrics. It explains like from left to right, there's every column represents a different stage in an attack, and every square represents a different technique that is available for that stage. So I painted in red here all the points where Ingrid has stepped, and typically, you will see it for every attack that is like a full attack. So there will be some red squares out there that will be spread across the MITRE attack metrics, and this is a good taxonomy to try and map the kill chain of an attack. Let's take some takeaways. The first one is not something that was explicitly discussed while I was demoing, but you will get it anyway. Tricking the endpoint is easy, and tricking network is not that easy. Let me explain. Let's assume that there was some endpoint protection here on, let's say, Johnny's computer, an anti-malware. And that anti-malware could have jumped or blocked the running of Mimikatz, for example. This is an executable that is quite often jumping as malicious on endpoint protection. Then Ingrid could have maybe changed the binary or obfuscate the binary, and then she would get away with it, right? Or maybe she could do what's called anti-malware tampering. And that's a nice name for just killing the process of the anti-malware. And then, again, she could maybe get away with it. But when she ran ps-exec or schedule tasks to run remote tasks, this is a network footprint that is not something she can change. Do you get it? Because it's based on well-known protocols. So this is a footprint that she wouldn't be able to evade very easily if there was some sort of network protection mechanism. Also, we see here, we saw that tools that attackers used are not all of them are malicious by definition. There was only Mimikatz and evil.exe, but evil.exe is crafted, so it can be anything. There's a lot of usage of leaving off the land binaries, which leads us to try and think of how we can protect against this. So the first thing is that network segmentation is key. There's maybe no reason for Danny and Johnny to be exchanging files between them in shared drives. This is an SMB transaction, and a good security administrator of Johnny's network could maybe set some firewall rules that don't allow this kind of transactions. And also, and this is the last and most important takeaway, is that the whole breach takes multiple steps. I know that it's a popular statement that says that attackers need to be right only once, but defenders need to be right all the time. Have you counted the times that Ingrid had to be right? There were many of them. And this is the time for you to try and suggest this is an interactive part where tell me where you think that a security protection mechanism could have prevented this attack. By show of hands. If you're too shy, I can go. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Okay, phishing training. That would maybe be a good, yeah.
Why do users need to be able to remote execute anything?
Exactly, remote execution or blocking ps-exec from being run unless it's a known a known IT administrator or something like this. I always have these fights with our CISO that I want my team to be able to run PSExec just for creating demos such as this one, and they won't let me. Yeah.
Motivating and keeping the workforce happy.
Sorry?
Motivating and keeping the workforce
Yeah, that's also something good for security. Like happy employees are better for the organization security. Yeah.
Danny had access to a lot of data, right? The whole, lot of secret data, production data of the company.
Yeah.
Limiting access.
Exactly. Limiting access for that. Yeah.
limiting user access to scheduled tasks.
Correct. Not everyone needs to be able to run scheduled tasks. Yeah.
All missing for password strength. A six-character password is not great.
Yeah, correct. I wonder when, it's more about how long the hash is, but you're right, like password policy is always great. Yeah. Also, there was some running of macros that shouldn't be something that's available, at least not for everyone, unless they have a good reason to do it. This is also a policy that using endpoint protection you can apply. Any more ideas? No connection to mega.io, why run rclone, mimikatz. There's many points, and I think that if we collect all these answers together, we find that there needs to be some security in-depth approach. It's not enough to just try and protect the initial access. I mean, it's good to do some phishing training, but still, the more points you have along the network, both endpoint and network, to block attacks, the better. And I think that we're done. Any questions? Okay, thank you so much. Thanks.